Are you so tired of ending up in the exact same relationship and you're like super excited and then you're like, I'm actually dating the exact same person or married to the same person over and over. And you're like, this is so over it. We got you. Andria Booles is our therapist at Crawford Clinics, who is phenomenal. Of course, I'm biased, but I literally send everyone to her, including myself. Ethically, she's not my actual therapist. Just have to caveat that. But as friends, there are benefits of having really great friends. So we see this a lot, right? Like in our friend group, in our everyday lives, and especially as clients, that when people are finally tired of ending up in the same kind of relationships, we can do mindset work, we can manifest our destiny, you can do a vision board on what you want in your person, but there may be something else that Andria is going to reveal to us today to help us actually change what we're attracting. So what is the work that you're doing now and getting your doctorate in?
So it's psychosomatic. So it's psycho is just your brain and somatic is your body. And how do those two things correlate and work together?
So in a world where we kind of don't want to deal with stuff, you're actually putting us back together, which sounds good, but is actually probably hard, you know?
It's actually not as hard as trying to push down those beliefs and then almost whack-a-mole them with what we want to be true, instead of there being tools that we can kind of go back and get to know that part that's in our subconscious and bring it up.
Yeah. And I think that's the value of, in a world where everything is just a mindset and a positivity and gravitate and attract what you want in life, it's a little bit naive to think there's not a whole underworld, that just because I tell myself positive things all day doesn't mean it's actually transforming everything under the waterline. And so that's the work that I really respect that you have done with a lot of our clients, and that you lead teams in helping to know, hey, just because you've done software work of mindsets, and then you're like, wait, how did that person still make it past my guard? Like, how did I not see the red flags until later? What are some of those parts of self that might be sending out different vibes than we are consciously trying to send out?
Yeah, so the authentic self will have a certain frequency, right? And so that...
And what do you say? What is authentic self for our audience? Let's translate that.
It's your true self. It's
self,
the actual part that really your identity, right? And that's formulated in that 0 to 5 years. And so we may not even cognitively know some of those beliefs that part is holding and containing, even though that is really what's kind of driving some of the decisions we make.
At an automaticity level.
Yeah.
And that's what's tricky. Just like your cell phone, you pick it up and it auto-populates your password by your face. You also have an auto-populate when you get around certain people, good and bad, and we send out different pheromones, hormones, energy. And so describe for us, I know we did a little bit, she has another episode, make sure you go back and watch that one, but just describe for this audience as we're listening, what is our energy field, what does that mean, and how are we attracting certain kinds of people?
So there's different ways that we self-protect, right? So we can have that masculine energy that is outward. So that has nothing to do with gender, right? That's, if you even think biology, right? It's how we procreate. It's an outward expression. And then for the feminine, it's what we take in. And so both, we actually, for us to be completely healthy, right? We want to have an equal balance of both.
Yeah. So to clarify, she already said it, but I want to reiterate, we're not talking about transgender or anything having to do with your biology or your gender. We're talking about the energy that we show up with. So for many of us, you know, we might have had like a more dominant parent. And so that more dominant energy, and that's how we show up in the world. And we may be repulsing, like if you're a female who's overly dominant, overly masculine in your energy, you might be repulsing the kinder, softer guy because it feels almost like a alpha against alpha. Or if your energy is the opposite and you're lopsided the other direction, then you could be sending out vibes of vulnerability and weakness and low self-esteem, or not know how to show up full-hearted. And so the healthy people may be less attracted than the people that do the work, like what Andria is describing, so that then you can show up and vibrant, healthy facets of all the sides of you show up. And that's really attractive. And there's a lot of life and mystery and energy and desire there For a lot of people, you might even be curious if you get really sleepy or tired around them, you might not be dealing with the full real them. You might be dealing with one of their protectors or a false self, which just means I'm showing you the version I think you want so that you'll like me. And we all have that. So if that's happening, you might be thinking you're showing up at a date or at work or a job interview, but your energy is the opposite at the unconscious level than what you're trying. So for people listening to this that are going, what in the world? Can you break it down a little bit more for us?
Yeah. So let's say that for whatever reason, right, there's initial sensitizing event that kind of told that person that the outside world is unsafe. So they created this ability to go inward and find safety inside, right? So every time, maybe you feel completely confident in your time alone, you can do things, you can have conversations, but then you step into a room where there's so much commotion and going on, there's your protectors coming up that's having to almost work and kind of deal with this. And so how does that safe, confident, authentic self step forward and engage in that? And the opposite can happen as well. So you have someone that's hyper vigilant. They're always aware of everything, details, things happening everywhere they go, getting down, getting soft, getting quiet, and going inside feels completely uncomfortable. And so that's really how those different energy levels of masculine and feminine kind of where they show up within the dynamics of your situations, of your circumstances, of your events.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even a relevant example might be for people that we've grown up with so much social media that's a really easy way for our energy to go in. Or if you ever shut down or you just compartmentalize, all of those would be examples of kind of that more feminine energy. And ironically, again, it's not based on gender. So we'll see a lot of people get in situationships, which is we're not actually really committed and fully together. We're just kind of in this thing.
Coexisting.
Yeah. Or we're getting friends with benefits, but we're not actually committing. So there's a lot of male and females in this generation that are struggling to really pursue and commit because everybody's kind of in this situationship where I peek my head out enough. What you doing at 2 a.m.? But I'm not actually going to show up fully and pursue and lead and set a date and, take you out and bring you to meet my family because there's so many layers of not having enough masculine energy to pursue and to lead in that. Or the girl maybe has to step in and say, what is this? What are we doing? And she's having to take the masculine energy as default, which is really a bummer. And then now nobody's really pursuing her. He feels emasculated, so he's leaning into feminine energy and she's leaning into masculine. And then the attraction can start to kind of lessen. She's getting more needy because she's probably giving him situationship stuff without the commitment. And then he's maybe feeling less attracted because he's not even leading from his masculine energy and he associates that with her because she's stepping in that role because he's not. So when we see that, what would be some good things to help people get out of that dynamic?
Well, I think it really starts with self, right? You can't really have emotional intimacy with an outside person until you start to build that within self.
Yes.
And that I don't think is something that we just know. It's something that we actually have to be taught or it has to be modeled or mirrored. And that takes some intentionality.
Yeah. And I think that's a big part of the therapy you do is really helping people know themselves. And then any of their unconscious self-sabotage can be gently brought in the light versus just wondering your whole life, why do I keep attracting the same people? Why do I keep in the same situationships? This is so annoying.
Yeah. Why do I feel so dissatisfied? No matter the different streams that I operate in, right? It's because it's almost like that indicator inside going, there's more.
Yeah.
And so it's almost wooing people into this place of dissatisfaction so that they can find who they really are and be connected with all parts of themselves.
That's so good. That's so good. And I would say if anyone ever asks you not to tell someone else what you're doing in a relationship, they're already asking you to divorce and compartmentalize parts within you because those are parts of them that are supposed to connect with other people. So it's already a red flag if anyone's listening. If someone's asking you, hey, what we do in our private, hookup, that nobody else needs to know about that, that's already a red flag, because that's not authenticity. That's not bringing everything into the light. Now, I'm not saying like gory details of all the stuff, but I'm saying some level of being fully known, fully seen, brought into the light in a place of health and vibrancy and accountability, that you don't just get to hook up with somebody, but then not be responsible for their heart, their emotions, and the relationships and accountability that is in their life. Right. And so we're seeing that a lot, where somebody sent me a funny meme the other day, and this girl is walking on this ice wall and she's like barely making it. And it says what it looks like when you've done therapy and you've worked on yourself and you've got it. You're doing so good. And then at 2 a.m. he sends a WYD text. And I was like, what does that mean? It's what you doing. And apparently that's now we're going to be hooking up, whether just virtually or in person. That is not love. You deserve more. If you are listening to this, male or female, WYD at 2 a.m. is literally the opposite of what we're saying. So I just want to put it out there that you are worth so much more. And if you don't know how to be fully present with yourself and all parts of you, it's really hard to do that and to ask for the boundaries, the respect, all of the things that you need from another human. So doing the work on yourself. If you're already married, it's probably a good idea to try. Just because you're in a mixed roles doesn't mean you can't work on that. It means, go to couples counseling, which at Crawford Clinics we have. And then on the other side, if you're dating somebody and you're kind of in mixed roles and you're hot and cold, together, not together, walk away. Just walk away. It's just not worth it. It's really going to be a long, hard journey. And if you get accustomed to having to be in kind of this affair relationship where it's like secret and intense and passion, and then we're like ghosting and not writing, and then we're together and it's really intense and make up sex and all that, and then you're destined. We see that and it just breaks our heart to see you devalue yourself in that way. So I have talked a lot and I'm so sorry. Passionate to protect people from things that are not good for them. But anyway, when you're seeing that and you're saying, okay, let's work on yourself, what are some practical things we could just do, not as therapy, because we can't do that on a podcast, but just some exercises that might help as we're listening?
Well, I think the most important thing within any relationship is safety, right? Felt safety. And so whether it's the world out there feels unsafe or my inside world feels unsafe, it's like, how do we show up? So whether you're a friend or a therapist, right, that's probably my number one goal, is like, how can I be a safe place for all parts of you to show up so that you feel safe getting to know all parts?
Yeah.
Right? When we're drowning and we feel like we're alone, that's when that isolation, that aloneness, that feeling like I just can't do this, that's where that settles in. And so we just want to really, walk alongside and say, hey, wherever you are, this is where you are now. That doesn't mean that's where you're always going to be.
Yeah.
So let's just start there.
So we're instilling hope. We're equipping people, walking with them, because slow and steady wins the race. Unrealistic expectations usually just crash and burn. And then when you can have people connect with, oh my gosh, I believe that I'm worth a narcissistic abuser, right? Now, consciously, people don't walk around with that unless they're into some weird stuff. But most, 99% of the population believes I deserve a good relationship and I'm a good person and I'm lovable and lovely and masculine and wonderful, whatever your belief is. But then we have these other parts of us, and those are regressed. And so Andria or any of our team at Crawford Clinics, we do restoring self-cohesion, which is where we're actually connecting with the hidden parts of you, the root issue of where that belief is stored, and then the energy or the frequency that's coming out of us that we don't even realize is gravitating people toward us. And one of my clients shared such an important story that she was with a group of women, they were working out, and this man was walking the periphery and he was looking at them. And she had this feeling of like, does he think I'm pretty? And she had this cold feeling inside. All of a sudden, like the Holy Spirit was telling her, that's not the kind of attraction you want anymore. That's actually a predator. That's the kind of looking that you don't want to attract in your life anymore. And she learned that because of her past trauma experience that what's called an unresolved attachment style or an unresolved trauma. So that little part of her was like, but do you love me? Am I pretty? Am I enough? So the unavailable love object then became the person she was unconsciously sending vibes out. Do you see me? Do you like me? Do you want me? And those are the unhealthy people that kept coming in her life. Different careers, different heights, different ages, but it was always the same kind of man underneath the veneer, which was really a predator. And so be aware that whatever your background is, maybe you had an emotionally unavailable, kind of shut down mom or dad, and you might still be longing for that person to be the one that's attracted to you. And so for this client, we had her process, go inside, do the work, restoring self-cohesion that she's describing so that she can meet with that part of self, finally get closure in her attachment style, and finally let go of that trauma and then release the trapped energy, the frequency of trauma that was still sending out bad vibes that other people that were not good were picking up. And then the good people weren't attracted to her. The cool thing is the healthier she's got at both the conscious mindset level, but the parts work. And now she's so attractive to the most wonderful, healthy people. And she has quick discernment to recognize that's a predator. He can say and do all the right things, but that's a predator, not going there. That is a closed door. Before, she didn't have discernment because the little kid part of self starts driving the car and creates this insatiable attraction. Like if you notice you have this euphoria and you're like a little kid and you're obsessed, and you're thinking about them all the time, sometimes that actually might be a sign that you're unhealthy attraction rather than a slow, steady, maturing, mutual respect affirmation that blooms into love is more likely that all of the parts of you are sequentially falling in love versus just the little kid that's like, oh my gosh, you're my person. And then you hook up and blah, 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 and then it's intense and we hate each other. We love each other. I want you so much. I can't stand you. All of that tends to be more of a replication of your childhood, hooking you into those same familiar patterns. So that's why Andrea is getting her doctorate in this area, to not just do the therapy, but the actual somatic, the way the body is sending out those vibes where predators, narcissistic people, abusive people, emotionally unavailable people might be drawn to you, and you don't realize some of the unconscious dynamics that might be feeding into it totally outside of your awareness and theirs. So thank you for being our guest.
Thanks for having me.
And we wanted to have more time for exercises, but we ran out. So if you want more, Andria is available at crawfordclinics.com, and we would love to see you for our next episode. Bye, guys.